When you need someone to talk to and you don't know what to do, call us 4400. When you're feeling all alone and they turn their back on you, call us 4400. Call us 4400. Call us 4400. Call us.
Welcome to the Kind Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Cammie Roberts. Once again, we're here to give insights and to share information and bring light to various topics that affect our communities at large. Kind Counseling is a mental health practice that gives hope to the hopeless through mental health empowerment and spiritual insight. And today we have a great show for you. We're talking interracial marriage in America. Part of why we're discussing this is because it comes up in my office on a pretty regular basis, and for a lot of my clients who are black women, this can be a real dilemma for them, and I wanted to have a conversation about it. So today we have a wonderful couple who is, who's joining us today, and let me just introduce them to you guys. Okay, first of all, we have Dr. Robert Carey. He earned his doctorate in history from Columbia University. Served as professor of history and dean at Empire State College with the State University of New York. Also, we have Dr. Patricia Carey, earned her doctorate in psychology from New York University, where she served for many years as the associate dean for student affairs. Bob and Pat are recently retired, proving that retirement can keep you actively involved and connected, which is so important. They've been married since 1965. 1965. And I met Pat and Bob when I was a student at NYU in the Scholars Program, which is an honors program that included international travel. I have the privilege of getting to know them in our Scholars Seminar and Scholars Travel. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation together this afternoon. So let's welcome Bob and Patricia Carey. All right. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
You guys can hear me?
Just delighted to be with you this afternoon.
Okay, all right. Good
Be reunited.
All right. If you guys can just adjust your volume just a little, I can just hear you a little better. Now, so we're doing this podcast, like I said, with the hope of just educating our listeners on various topics, and that may impact their mental health. Right. So before we get into any deeper issues, how did you guys meet?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's give you the short end of it. We were both in college, not the same college. I was at Michigan State. Bob was at Wesleyan University. We were both sort of actively involved in some way or another on our campuses. But we grew up in households that stressed engagement and involvement, and so it was not unusual for us to be involved on campus while studying and trying to get good grades at the same time. And you know about that, Cammie, right?
Right. Okay.
And so when this organization called Operation Crossroads to Africa came on our different campuses, we went to their information sessions, found out about this wonderful organization that took college students to West Africa at that point during the summer to work on community service projects with the community. And that's how we met. We met at the orientation in Washington.
Okay.
I thought Bob was quite interesting. We had these small group discussions, large group discussions, dances, all kinds of things to bring the big group together because we were going to different parts of West Africa. Okay. And so that's really how we met. I eventually went to Nigeria eastern Nigeria
Mm-hmm.
and worked on building cement steps down a very steep hill, which led to the only stream in the village.
Okay.
And later worked at a midwifery clinic.
Mm.
And Bob worked building a school. But at the end of that particular experience that summer, we decided, well, let's, stay in touch. Because I was, I guess, still at Michigan State and then in Chicago. Bob was in Connecticut.
Okay.
And so we stayed in touch.
All right. So Bob, do you have a
Very long
different?
time.
You have a different version, Bob?
That's basically the opening chapter.
Oh, okay.
Correspondence. We visited a couple of times during that period. I was on my way to New York. I was going to Union Seminary. I finished a degree at seminary.
Okay.
And over the course of that time, began to develop, I think, a relationship where we began to think, oh, this has some legs on it. This could go somewhere.
Okay.
And while I was in seminary, I had a chance to do an internship in Dr. King's church in Atlanta.
Okay.
I went to Atlanta and I ended up staying that year, 1 year, and then staying on for another year with the Atlanta Council on Human Relations. And it was during that period, the Atlanta period, that I really began to look seriously at whether or not this relationship was going to be just more than, have a nice life.
Okay.
And I guess we could tell that we were going somewhere because both of our parents began to be a little nervous about where this thing was going. So once your family starts going crazy, things are on the boil.
Right.
And then we decided, okay, let's do this. And Pat came to Atlanta. Second year I was there, so we could see each other day in, day out. We lived in this community with a bunch of other people. That's a whole other story. That's a whole other podcast. So we'll shut the door on that.
Okay.
And at that point, we decided that, okay, this is a serious relationship, and we decided that we should get married.
I have to add, though, Tammy, that between Crossroads to Africa and getting to this point took about 4 years.
Okay. Okay.
We had a long distance romance, and during that time, we were writing letters. We even had a series called the Panther and Lion series of letters, in which we really talked about some serious issues in terms of relationship, being together, being married, the kinds of concerns that couples typically have, but then concerns that we had as a result of being a black female and a white male.
Okay. Okay.
So when we went to Atlanta, that provided us an opportunity to have a day-to-day relationship, to see each other every day, which we've not been able to do up to that point.
Now, you guys, when I think 1960s, right? I think segregation, race riots, Martin Luther King assassination, a very heated time. So,
Yes.
what I guess, what was that like for the two of you to get together in the midst of all of that?
Well, one thing I think, I know it sounds like, my God, this talking to World War I veterans. No, in history, over 50 years ago, it's a half century ago. Two things to remember. One was we both graduated college at the time John F. Kennedy was inaugurated president. And that was an extraordinarily hopeful time.
Okay.
All the turmoil, because remember, there's the Montgomery bus boycott. This was unfolding already. There was a sense that change was in the air. This was possible.
Okay.
The future was possible. And so it was that sense of, geez, I want to be part of this. I want to be in it. And so that all that was happening from that perspective was a sign that change was happening. Things were breaking up. It's like listening to ice break up.
Okay.
You know, this was really happening.
All right.
And being in Atlanta and being in Petty King's Church and Ebenezer, you know, because you know when Martin preached in that church, it was packed. It was electric, and there was that sense that the hour has come. You know, the hour and the man had met, and the March on Washington was the sign and symbol that this was the time. So it was very, very optimistic. Now, having said that, we also recognized that we were in a viciously segregated society. When I was doing work in the church and I had to make pastoral calls, for example, I had to go to Grady Hospital, which is Atlanta's big hospital, absolutely strictly segregated. There's black over here and there's white over there. I mean, there's two worlds, equally divided, unequally treated. And Atlanta was laid out that way. You know, I could walk from where we lived to downtown Atlanta, and you'd go out on Peachtree, and it was all Peachtree Street, it was all swank and glamour.
Okay.
And a lot of the work I was doing was in the bottoms where the stadium is now. That was a very poor neighborhood.
Okay.
Used to sit in a barbershop and talk for an afternoon with tenants where we were trying to get some handle on housing and low-grade housing that was in that neighborhood. So that was also the reality. And those two things we just took in all together. And
well, we lived in a commune, a community.
All right.
With many people, about 22 other people. There were two houses, and our house abutted Dr. King's back yard.
Okay.
We should say that the place was run by the Mennonites, the Mennonite Central Committee.
Okay.
And it was managed by Vincent Harding, who was a name in his own right in terms of civil rights history, because Vincent was a black Mennonite, and he was very close to the King and SCLC and whatever was happening. So that commune sort of served as a meeting place for people who were moving in and out of Georgia, in and out of the South, doing different things.
Okay.
And so, and a lot of the folks in that community were Mennonites who had come to Atlanta to do their service. That tradition as a community of service.
Right. So, and it was an interracial community.
Really?
But in terms of my experience of Atlanta, I'm originally from Chicago, and while Chicago was segregated and all, it took Atlanta for me to really come up against, in my face, segregation and because before I went to Atlanta, I did plan, and I applied for a position, a job.
Okay.
And I was hired sight unseen for a counseling position with this agency. I showed up on time, and the supervisor comes out. I'm the only one in the waiting room. The supervisor is looking all over the waiting room.
Wow.
I said, "You must be looking for me."
Okay.
At that time, I said, "I'm Miss Morris." He says, "Oh my God, we made a terrible mistake.
Wow.
You would never fit in here." And of course, I said, "Well, I'm not sure of that. I think I would." He says, "Oh, no, you would not." Wow. At that point, I knew that was a war I was not going to win. So I said, "Thank you very much," and I left.
Okay.
I did eventually find a position with Gate City Day Nursery, working with families, children.
Okay.
And it was a social service agency. But that was a real, eye opener for me.
Okay.
We could not, for example, when Bob and I decided that we were going to actually be married, we wanted to get our wedding rings
Right.
in a. We could not go into the jewelry store together to get these rings.
Okay.
Bob went in first and looked around and had a couple of ideas, and I had to then go in and look around, and I said, well, yes or no, but we could not go in together. And this was before loving.
Okay.
A loving decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just go ahead.
We would, go to the movies with some of the folks from the commune, and the movie theater when we walked in would just empty out, and what a feeling,
Wow.
And people would move back away, so we were infected.
Really?
So there was this kind of cordon sanitaire around us. There were empty seats in back of us, empty seats in front of us. People
Really?
would live up. It was weird. It was a little spooky too.
So let me ask a question.
This experience, but you sounded like you had a question for us.
Yes. So you said you were working with Dr. King. So I'm guessing obviously you were amongst mostly black people, Bob. So when you brought Pat into that community and said, "This is my girlfriend," how was that received?
Well, there was a funny moment when Pat first came to Atlanta. She came to service in Ebenezer, and Daddy King wanted to introduce her.
Right.
He could not get to the word Bob's fiance.
Oh, okay.
What he settled for was Bob's friend, stand-up Pat, stand-up.
Bob's friend.
In that sense that, it was something, a little bump in the road there. But that was the reality.
Yeah, I mean there were mixed reviews, mixed reactions.
I think one appropriate point about that. One time when I was with the Council on Human Relations, we went to the celebration of the Queen's birthday party.
Okay.
So the British Consulate in Atlanta would always throw a big party.
Okay.
And for Atlanta White Society, this was a big deal, man. I mean, people put on rags and really got dressed up. And as director of the Atlanta Council on Human Relations, I was on the invitation list.
Really?
We went. Oh yes, very good champagne, all that. And we were standing with a group of folks that I knew from the council and some other people they had introduced me to, and Pat was there with me, and we were enjoying it. And this white woman came up and was standing literally in front of Pat like this, right in her face. And she was, pretty well gone in terms of her drink, so she had kind of whiskey courage.
Okay.
And she said to Pat, "What are you doing here?"
Wow.
And that was, to me, Atlanta right at that point.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was, we had stepped into a space that just was, a no-no. This was terrible, terrible breach of manners and racial etiquette. So you got all of that very quickly. Because when I was born in Connecticut, I was used to ethnic sorting out, industrial New England, Americans here, Italian Americans here, Irish on the west side, a grouping of Puerto Ricans, some historically small black communities, and then, assorted Protestant denominations and a small Jewish temple. Okay. And that was you navigated those things. There were Jews, there were Catholics, there were Protestants of various persuasions. Okay. When you went to the South, it was black and white, straight up.
Right, black and white.
Got you. You're listening to the Kind Counseling Podcast. Feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now back to the show. So now...
Really swift.
Okay. So now, what happened when you guys brought each other to meet your families?
Well, they were sort of mirror images of each
Yes,
Okay.
other.
the same concerns. And as Bob was saying,
Mm-hmm.
it was fine when they knew we were friends. They knew we had participated in Operation Crossroads. But when we began to get serious,
Uh-huh.
and especially when I was by that time, I was in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and Bob was in Connecticut, right?
No, Atlanta. I was in Atlanta by then.
No, but when we
No, I was in New York. I was in seminary.
yeah, but when our families
Mm-hmm.
met, when our families met us, because I visited
Yeah, that was
Connecticut.
right.
So Bob visited. Did you come to Chicago?
Oh yeah.
Bob visited my family.
Uh-huh.
I visited his family, and everybody was very, very polite.
Okay.
But it was always the questions, it's nice that the two of you are really good friends, but,
Mm-hmm.
how is society going to accept you? And what about the children? And what is this anyway?
Wow. So they thought it was a phase? Is that what they thought?
They were hoping.
Yeah, I think they were hoping, right.
They were hoping this was a phase and that we would grow out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you guys have any like specific reservations from your either your parents or family members? Like, did anyone approach you about it or anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. My father wrote a letter to Pat. I think we still have it somewhere.
Wow.
I flew up from Atlanta to Chicago to talk with her father. We argued for an entire afternoon.
Wow.
I had this huge. When Pat visited, we had this impossible conversation with my brother, who's and my sister. My sister was fairly sympathetic.
Okay.
My younger sister was fairly sympathetic. My older brother, not so much. It was the classic. What about the children? Which we said, what about the children? If we have children,
Right.
that be our children.
Right.
And we
Like
will,
other families have children, so will we.
and we will learn how to be parents of our children.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, part of it, there are real differences there too. I think on my family's side, there was a sense of, oh my God, he's stepping out of the world in which he was raised. And I think on Pat's side, there was from her family was more fear.
Yeah.
Something could really go wrong.
Yeah.
Particularly with her going south
Right.
into Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my father,
Mm-hmm.
when I told him that I was going to move to Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
and I was going to live in this commune, and Bob would be there and all. He says, well, he was going to call the police in Atlanta and let them know that this black person was living with this white person.
Wow.
And I said, you know what that means? They will pick me up and they will take me away, and you may never see me again.
Wow.
It was not that my father was being evil and mean,
Mm-hmm.
but he was saying that out of fear.
Okay.
Because he grew up in the South.
Okay.
And he left the South and migrated to Chicago
Okay.
as a result of segregation in the South. And the treatment of his family and friends in the South.
Okay.
So he was afraid for me.
Okay.
And I remember too when I announced that I was going to go to Atlanta. My father had called my two best friends together, my sisters, my aunt, other members, to convince me not to go to Atlanta.
Wow.
Because Atlanta signaled that I was truly, truly serious about my relationship with Bob. I mean, never mind that I would meet Dr. King and be part of the civil rights
Right.
movement there. But, uppermost in my mind was my relationship with Bob.
Right.
And so one of my friends said to me, Pat, don't go. Just this time, don't go. And I said to her, this time, this is my only time that I have to go. And so I remember at one point, this family, this meeting went on for I don't know how many hours. At one point, I said, because I was just exhausted by it, I said, okay, I won't go. So everybody says, oh, that's fabulous, and they hugged me. And as soon as I got the first hug, I said, no, I'm going. And that's when everybody then started going crazy again. Oh, no, you can't do that. The bump.
Wow.
And my father says, I will disown you. And I said, well, if it comes to that, I'm really very sorry if it should come to that. But again, he had taught me and my sisters to do what we believed in and to stand up for our beliefs. And that's what I was doing.
Okay.
And so when it came to this, it was, I was simply putting into practice what I had learned.
Right. So this was, this was an active fear that people had in the 60s that they would be arrested for interracial dating or marriage?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that was
Especially in the South.
Right, that was the lingering thing. I mean, you got a sense that here's one world, here's another world.
Okay.
And you cannot
Cross
between
it.
that.
Yes.
That is a no-no. So that, and the reality was, Lord knows there's a long history of interracial liaisons and all the rest. I can remember going to family picnics in Atlanta.
Okay.
Family reunions, where everybody seems to think you need another piece of pound cake, which so you can really hurt yourself at a family reunion.
Okay.
But it was really extraordinary to see entire families from across the South and the range of colors in that family. Okay. From people who were blue-eyed, lights, very lights, could pass.
Right.
Some were passing, and others who were very dark. Okay, and all in between. So you saw it immediately, America's racial history right there. So this wasn't anything new. What was the newer element of it was we're just saying, hey, we want to get married,
Yeah.
It's an okay thing
And
to
it was out in the open.
Okay.
We wanted to get married legally.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So let me, would you guys say that over the years you feel as though the attitude towards interracial marriage has changed, or you feel like it's still, or it's more underlying now as opposed to before when it was more overt?
I mean, my guess is, just from what you see every day walking around New York, that it's a good deal more common than, say, it would have been in the 50s and 60s, and immediate post-war America in the 70s. There's a kind of, taken for granted, I think more taken for granted quality. In terms of numbers, I don't know, you probably have to look at rates of out marriage in terms of who marries who. I think I think black-white marriages, the percentages are still, say, smaller than Jew-Gentile or white Hispanic.
And Asian.
And Asian, yeah. So it's happening in society. Now that makes a lot of people very nervous because we're browning up as a society. So that plus immigration, which stirs the pot even more. But I think, generally speaking, this is a far more open society than certainly it was in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
But it still is not something that does not go unnoticed.
Okay.
So it's still noticed.
Okay.
It still does make a difference.
Okay. So you're saying you still see reactions, you mean? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I would think actually it would be kind of interesting as a follow-up if you could find somebody who was married, say, 5 years ago.
Okay.
How did they meet? Where did they meet? You know, what did their families say? Or, you know, what's been their experience? It'd be kind of interesting to compare that. I think
That's a good point.
something a little bit more elastic,
Right.
a little more accessible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, Bob, let me ask you, because you guys have 2 children. What was it like for you as a white male in this society raising a black son? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, basically, I was passing on to him the way I had been raised, you know, in terms of the values that mattered, like education and, you know, personal formation.
Okay.
Focusing on that, you know, having goals, setting those goals. You know, and I think generally speaking, I mean, we have the usual father-son conflicts. I remember when he still telling the story. One time when he was very young, he was just getting on my last nerve. And he was wearing Oshkosh, you know, those bib overalls.
Right.
And so I said, all right, Jason, we've had enough. And so I just picked him up by his overalls.
He must have been about 3.
He must have been about 2 or 3 years old. And I just carried him like a suitcase, you know, back to our apartment building.
Right.
And I said, you know, I've had enough. And he was mortified, but you know.
Because he said, "You're carrying me like a dog."
Okay.
But we remain very close.
Yeah.
You know, we text, we talk. You know, we are very close to both our kids.
Yeah.
So that, from my perspective, is you know, you embody the values that we have.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're navigating a society that is changing. That's going to pose some, you know, cause some real pain and some difficulties. But these are the things we want you to hold on to,
Right.
and be guided by.
Okay.
And in raising our kids, we wanted them to be proud of both sides
Okay.
of it, and to honor both sides.
Okay.
And so we talked about Black history, and we talked about you know, segregation and integration and
All right.
and issues. They also went to a school that talked about social justice
Okay.
and you know, equality and really stressed the beloved community that Dr. King talked about.
Okay. So
I
now,
mean, one of
yeah.
the ways, you know, because we have this question posed a lot, you know, how black are they or how white are they?
Right.
I like to use they're multilingual.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They're multilingual because you can't take a slice of this, a slice of that. What we share is middle-class values. We value education. We value higher education. We're both professional educators.
Right.
So all of those are part of who they are.
Okay.
Plus, you know, knowing our individual histories, and as they've aged, you know, becoming much more conversant with the culture of which we're a part and shaping their own identity. So I like that notion of, you know, it's like I've had students, you know, who grew up speaking 5 languages and just took it for granted that that's how you navigated the world. And I think that's how I think of our kids as being multilingual.
Okay.
In a way that we had languages, they already were born knowing them.
So now, when earlier this year, I guess in May or June, I forgot when it was, but when an incident like the George Floyd incident happens, or a Rodney King situation, how do the two of you navigate that? Because that was one of the thoughts that I had. Like, what happens when this kind of situations happen and you have two people from different cultures in the same household? So how did you guys navigate that? Like, if you could tell me a little bit about that.
It was wrong. It was wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter that he's white and I'm black.
Okay.
We share similar values.
Okay.
And for us, as a couple, I mean, it was wrong. And so we talked about that. We could talk about it. We could march. We could lend our voices to all those voices out there saying something has got to be done.
Okay.
So it didn't get down to, oh, he's white and I'm black, and I should have a black point of view and he should have a white point of view.
Now that gets down to basic justice, and one of the things that
Okay.
one of the things very early on, and I think working in Dr. King certainly cemented this, is this is a caste society. And when you're talking about change in society, for it to become a truly democratic, inclusive society, white privilege has got to go. Simply got to go.
Okay.
Root and branch.
All right.
That means police departments have to be reformed. That means election laws have got to be changed. All of that stuff, all of that structure of privilege is and that's what we were looking at with Breonna Taylor,
right.
With George Floyd, with the ease with which police think they can shoot black men. That stuff has got to go straight up.
Right.
Okay. So now, Patricia, just over the years, right? I'm sure that I shouldn't assume, but just based on things I've heard in my office, like some black women see it as like, well, I don't want to sell out my race or things like that if I get involved with someone, not just white males, but any other male. So what would you say to someone like, if someone asked you about your marriage, like what would you say to them in that regard?
I didn't marry a race.
Okay.
I married an individual. And one of the important things that Bob and I agreed on early on is that we aren't trying to convince other people to accept what we decided. We asked them to respect our decision, but not necessarily to decide what we decided.
Okay.
And so I never thought of selling out my race. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
I did not take a pledge to, I pledged to find this kind of person.
Okay.
Because suppose I hadn't found that kind of person.
Right.
But you know what? I didn't go looking for Bob either.
Okay.
When I saw him at orientation, I thought he was very interesting and very intellectual. He was cute, but I didn't think, oh, that's my future husband.
All right.
I wasn't there. And I was not, I wasn't saying, oh, I must marry a white person.
Gotcha.
If I think if you say I must marry a white person or I must marry a certain kind of person, you've kind of boxed yourself in.
Okay.
Because there's so many possibilities that can just go awry,
Right.
because you boxed yourself in, and you said no to before you even know what the
Right.
possibilities are.
Right. So I'm hearing you guys, and this is I mean, I do marriage counseling. So, and a big part of it for me is that when couples need to have similar values. And it sounds to me like that's a very important part of your relationship, that you guys have very similar values.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's key. I mean, one of the things that we worked in the course of our early being when we first got married was to find a way to always get to the end of the day having talked about whatever was problematic that day. And one of the things we found ourselves saying to people who asked about marriage and stuff like that we ended up saying is make sure you have a kitchen table where you can sit down and talk things out.
Yes.
Okay.
Do not let the day go down on. No, do not let the day end
Right.
on something that's unresolved. Talk it through.
Yes.
Okay.
'Cause that's where your core realities are.
Right.
And that's what you're gonna work on. That's the texture of your relationship. You're weaving a rug. You're weaving a carpet, and those are the threads that matter.
And relationships don't just happen. You have to work on them,
Yes.
and you have to work on them day in and day out. And you don't always agree, and that's fine. That's what makes a relationship interesting.
Yes.
And informative. And so it can all come together. One of the things that Bob and I sometimes have talked about in terms of say, maintaining our home. I don't like to vacuum.
Okay.
For example.
Okay.
Bob likes to vacuum.
Okay.
I like to dust.
That was a forced choice.
I like to dust because I can then move things around.
Okay.
I mean, this has to do with my own personality, right? I like to move things around, so I dust. I can rearrange, right?
Yeah.
I don't mind putting dishes in the dishwasher.
All right.
But I don't like to take things out of the dishwasher and put them away.
Okay.
So Bob does that.
Gotcha.
So, in a relationship, you work out these different details, which sometimes seem to be so mundane, but they are so important.
Yeah.
Because these are the little things that make the relationship work.
Right.
And not always smooth.
True.
Nobody ever promised us a rose garden.
Right. Right.
But that's what makes it exciting day in and day out.
Yeah, and also when we were first married, we met a lot of couples, interracial couples, and whose point of pride was that they were interracial couples. It wasn't clear what they shared in common or what values or what aspirations they had. So that was the accomplishment, and we decided. Right. I mean, pretty much. I remember going at one party. We said, "This is a little strange here," because all people were talking about was being interracially married, and I thought,
Wow.
"No, we're not gonna go down that road because that if your relationship is based on that, it's like cardboard characters talking to each other. There's no three-dimensionality there, so." We pretty much left that behind and, navigated our own way. We made friends over the years through a variety of contacts. And that's, worked out fine.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? As we come to the end of this interview, I mean, I really want to thank you guys for giving me the time, first of all. But, just really shedding some light on the importance of a lot of underlying things as opposed to just the outward appearance, so I thank you guys for sharing your story. I mean, and do you want to add anything else before we wrap up? You guys want to say anything else or add anything else?
Well, I would think, it's always good to end the day with a glass of wine. So sure you are clear about your choices of wine, whether you like white or red, and then you can work it out from there.
Gotcha. Okay.
And soda works too,
Okay.
other beverages.
I
But I would just say be clear on what you believe about your relationship,
Yeah.
okay.
and be prepared for people disagreeing with you. It's all right if they disagree,
Right.
because this is the decision you have made,
Okay.
and this is the decision that you must own.
Right.
You have the responsibility to own it because you made it.
Okay. Okay.
And I mean, I was kidding around in terms of the glass of wine at the end of the day. But one thing I will say is, apropos of talking through at the end of the day, you're married every day of your life. So that means that's something you work on. Don't take it for granted like a coat in the closet.
Okay.
It's something that's always evolving.
Yes.
It's more like a plant that needs water and nurturing and care.
Mm.
And that plant is going to shade you and give you comfort.
Wow. Nice words to end on. Thank you guys very much for coming, and I appreciate the insight and the history lesson as well. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
It was our pleasure, really, Cammie.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I've stopped recording. So.